So if you've been fascinated by high horsepower or you're curious about race fuels, well, you've landed on the right video. Now, we've done a bunch of videos already talking about different fuels and how you can get different horsepowers, the pros and cons of different fuels. Well, today we're going to be taking a look at methanol. Now, it shouldn't be confused with ethanol. These are two different things. That's kind of the point of this video, so you understand the difference between ethanol, methanol, what you're actually getting, when you should or shouldn't use methanol. So let's get into it. To the Jumbotron of knowledge. Methanol is the horsepower cheat code. You get big power out of methanol. That brings you into like with drag racing, they got top fuel, which is like nitromethane, and then below that, that's where you get into the methanol. And there's a reason they run that. Same with like Monster Jam and stuff like that. This is why you make some of the biggest, baddest engines on earth, you know, short of going with nitromethane, with methanol. We're going to talk about the different octane ratings, the risk behind it, like invisible fire, blindness, and all that good stuff. So what are we looking at here? What type of horsepower can you actually expect? With this thought exercise, now remember, this is potential power. This doesn't mean you or your neighbor working out of his garage is going to get this kind of power, but this is like maximum potential power using different types of fuel. On pump gas 93 octane with a 400 cubic inch engine, limited strictly to only naturally aspirated. You can do whatever else you want, you know, besides nitrous or blower or any sort of forced induction. With 93 octane, you're pretty much going to cap out at about 550 to 600 horsepower on a 400 cubic inch engine. Eventually, what you're going to run into is mechanical limitations, a detonation wall, essentially. You're just not going to be able to get enough more bang out of it because your fuel's going to start pre-detonating. You can't throw any more timing on it. You can't throw any more compression numbers. You are capped pretty much at 550, 600. Now, moving that over to E85, which is essentially 105 octane, you can get between 650 to 700 horsepower. You achieve this by running 30% more fuel volume. You can run a higher compression and you can throw more timing at it. And it does have a slight cooling effect. Now with methanol, this is around 116 plus octane rating. You're going to get between 750 and 800 horsepower. One second, let me try to fix this little blinking thing here. You're going to get between 750 and 800 horsepower. That's because of the massive cooling effect, which we're going to talk about in this video, and how the fuel just cools down the air intake charge. You're going to be able to run a whole bunch more timing on it. You're going to be able to run a whole bunch more compression on it. You can get up to like 13.1 to 15 to 1 compression. You are just going to unlock a whole much more power. So look at the difference. Capping out at about 600 horsepower with that same exact engine setup, you know, obviously increasing timing, compression ratio and that, you're going to be up around 800 horsepower. So that's a pretty substantial gain going with methanol over gasoline. Now here's the power paradox. The methanol actually has 50% less bang inside of a gallon of it over gasoline. When it comes to BTUs, that's where you would get your power from. Now, where you're going to get the added power from to bypass this is, one, you're going to be running more fuel inside the cylinder. You can run a fat 13.5% fuel inside of your air-fuel ratio mixture. With gasoline, it's only going to be 6.3%. Plus of the cooling effect. So gasoline, this is what your BTUs look like. You're going to look at about 114,000 to 125,000 BTUs in 1 gallon of gasoline. Very explosive, high raw energy there. E85, you're looking at 81 to 84,000 BTUs. You're looking at a pretty significant drop there. Now you get down to methanol, and you're looking at 57 to 65 BTUs in a gasoline. In 1 gallon. That's about 50% less than gasoline, but you get significantly more horsepower. It's crazy how that works out, right? Now, why are we talking about E85 and not just straight ethanol? I'm going to make an actual video going over the differences between these two, but I'm just going to touch on it real quick. So in this video, when I'm saying E85, why not just run E100? Why not pure ethanol? E85, we talk about this because it's $3 right at the gas station, like for a gallon of it. Now, pure E100, you're going to be looking at $12 to $18 per gallon because you got to use the shipping. It's got to be hazmat shipping. You're going to have to buy this by a 55-gallon drum. You can't just go to the gas station and pump it in. You're going to get diminishing returns. So going from E85 to E100 on a 600 horse engine, you're going to be looking at 1 to 3% increase gain. That's not very much. Just a little bit of timing you can throw on there. Maybe a little bit more compression numbers. 1 to 3% around an engine that's around 600 horsepower. Now, juice that up to 1,500 horsepower. Now you're going to be looking at a 5 to 10% gain. So is that worth it being able to run that little bit of extra timing, that little bit of extra boost, a little bit of extra compression? For 99% of us, absolutely not. E85 wins just because of the price, the availability of it, and it works good in winter. E100 does not. So E100 is only for those like heads-up bracket racers where fractions of a second matter. For the rest of us, E85. So the purpose of this video, we're talking about the difference between E85 and methanol. Alright, so now one of the major advantages with methanol is the cooling effect. They call it latent heat of vaporization. So basically when you see that girl sitting at the beach and she's spraying herself with a water bottle, she's not cooling off because she's getting wet. Yes, there is a cooling effect there, but when the air turns into a mist, it actually cools the air around it. They have even things called swamp coolers. That's how they function. Anyways, so what does that look like? For gasoline, that's just a standard cooling. Just the fluid turning into a mist, there is a cooling effect there, but it's just comparable to like anything else. When you get up to E85, you're going to be lowering the temperature by 360 BTU per pound. When you get up to methanol, you're looking at 500 BTU per pound. That's nearly 4 times greater of a cooling effect over gasoline. This will drop your intake temperatures by like 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Essentially, methanol is a liquid intercooler. You'll actually see like blowers in that sweat because they're so cold, kind of like when you pull a cold pop can out and you set it out and you get that sweat on there. You'll see it on the blowers because it's cooling it down so much. Sometimes you'll get that on E85 too, but you'll really get that on methanol. Methanol brings the cooling temp down so much, a lot of pro racers, they'll even remove their intercooler and just run methanol because it's so much cooler and you save the weight on there. And anytime you can save weight, it's good when you're talking about drag racing. On street, you still actually use washer fluid, which essentially is methanol and water, and then they'll inject that in to cool off their engines because that helps cool it down. Methanol is really a chemical intercooler. When is this really used? Monster Jam trucks, 1,500 horsepower, they run it on methanol because it's crash safe. So the beautiful thing about methanol is there's not a whole lot of radiant heat. So when the vehicle crashes, they can just put it out with a garden hose and you don't have that big wall of heat just coming into the crowd. Dirt tracks. A lot of times their radiators now will get plugged up with mud and all that. Well, the methanol, because it cools so much, it cools it from the inside out. It really, really helps with that. Top fuel dragsters, they run that because you can run 60 pounds of boost on it with zero intercooler. It's just amazing on how well it works. Now, the problem with methanol is, for us normal people, it doesn't work in the cold. Instead of vaporization, what it's going to do is puddle up, and then you're going to have problems. Because it's going to go in the intake, it's not going to stay in that vapor, it's just going to puddle on top of the piston. So then it's going to wash out the walls of the piston, remove all the lubrication on the walls, and then it's going to go into your oil. It's going to destroy the oiling properties of the oil. So you're going to need an oil change on there. Now there's other issues too. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. But essentially, just for the cold weather part, it's not going to work in the cold. You're going to drain your battery trying to start it. You're going to screw up your oil. You're going to scuff out your cylinders because all the lubrication is going to be gone. So it's just going to be metal on metal, just eating at it. Not ideal, but now E85 can work in the winter. And that's where that gasoline percentage comes in there. Shelf life is absolutely horrible. It's got a hydroscopic. It soaks moisture right out of the air. Apparently, the internet was telling me it's so hydroscopic it will pull moisture right through a plastic jug. So, in a vented fuel cell or a plastic jug methanol, you're looking at deterioration within 30 days. That's absolutely terrible. And you don't want that because what's going to happen if it pulls some moisture in, you're going to run lean and you're going to kill pistons, you're going to burn holes through pistons, burn holes through valves. It's not good at all. They call it a pickling process. After they run a race, like a Monster Jam or something like that, they have to flush out their entire fuel system with gasoline to protect it. Otherwise, the methanol, it's corrosive. It just eats at everything. It's going to eat away your aluminum. You get a white powder in there, it's going to screw up your injectors. Not ideal at all. Now, E85 does also have a short shelf life, but it's not nearly as short as methanol. E85 will start to separate. Let's say you leave it in your gas tank for the winter. The alcohol inside the E85 will start absorbing water, and then the water and the gas will separate. And then the gas will float on top of the water because the alcohol gets so heavy, it just sinks to the bottom. You have a separation on it, so then it goes just straight up water, alcohol, gasoline. So if you leave your hot rod sit throughout the winter, you're probably going to have to drain the tank. Not a bad idea to drain the tank, or at least the bottom portion of the tank. Now, methanol does last up to 2 years inside of a sealed metal drum, but you have to be very careful with that. Again, you need to keep it sealed, otherwise it's going to deteriorate very, very rapidly. But again, the shelf life does increase a little bit inside of a steel drum, but E85 inside of a steel drum has a substantially better shelf life than methanol. So you need to be aware of that if you're thinking about going to methanol. Now for the downsides, like I talk about the super fuel, how awesome it is. Yes, you know what, it doesn't work great in the winter, but who cares? We're hot rodders. It's going to stay on the track anyway. You know what, it degrades parts, but who cares? We're going to just flush them out with gasoline. Now here's where the scary stuff comes from. This is the ghost fire. If you remember that movie Talladega Nights.
Oh my God, help me, I don't want to die. Oh, stop, drop, and roll.
You're not on fire, Ricky Bobby.
I'm on fire. You're not on fire.
I'm pretty sure that joke was about the ghost fire. So essentially in the Indy cars, they would set their pit crews. And I only know of one for sure incident. Driver pulls in and something happened and him, his car, and the entire pit crew was covered in methanol. And nobody could see the fire. It was completely invisible, so they're just running around flailing, trying to put themselves out, and nobody knows what the hell's going on. Terribly, terribly scary. Now this happens because the carbon atoms, they're separated, so it burns efficiently. You don't get the yellow and the orange and the smoke coming off of it like you do with other fuels. Ultimately, Indy cars wind up switching fuels. Now, Monster Jam, they get away with this because, one, they have a fuel suppression system right inside their trucks. So, if they roll over or they sense that there's any sort of fire going on, they pull a little ripcord, boosh! It douses the engine, douses the fuel compartment, douses the driver compartment with flame retardant chemicals. Plus, with Monster Jam, like, you got dirt, you got engine oil, you got all that grease, the engine paint on it, the body of the monster truck, you're going to see fire coming off. But like, let's say a monster truck rolls over and he gets on the radio like, hey, I smell fuel. They'll just come in there with a garden hose and blindly douse everything because, like I said before, methanol is really water soluble. So if there's a methanol fire, it's not like a petroleum fire where you need chemicals to put it out. Just straight up water dilutes the methanol to a point to where it can't burn anymore. So if the driver's on there is like, hey, I smell fuel, boom, they come in with water and just start dousing everything with water. They don't even worry about if there is or is not a fire because it's just water. Most engines are okay getting wet, like it's not that big of a deal. So, that is the ghost fire thing. Now, there are dragsters and stuff like that that do run methanol. IndyCar, they wind up just switching over to ethanol. They're like, you know what? We're just going to switch to ethanol. Originally, they just wanted additives in the methanol, so if it burns, it gives off a color, but they didn't like the additives in there because it can screw with their tunes and stuff like that. So ultimately, IndyCar just switched to ethanol, but there still is quite a bit of drag racing people that run methanol. So this is what's going on here. Because it has the isolated carbon atom, it burns very efficiently. Methanol brings its own oxygen to the party. That's how come you can run such a fat methanol air-fuel ratio. I believe it's like 9, you know what, I'm not even going to say it, but I'll roll it in right here. As you notice, it's not 14.7 to 1, and that's where you get the huge power because of this oxygen atom. Ethanol is the same thing. Because of that oxygen atom, you can run so much more ethanol inside of your cylinder. That's where you get your big power from. This is your gasoline molecule. Notice there is no oxygen atom. Also notice the ethanol has 2 carbon atoms connected. So that means it's not going to burn as efficiently as methanol. So that's where you're going to get your smoke from, your yellow flame. Gasoline, there's no oxygen at all there, and there's a whole bunch of carbon atoms connected together. So that's why with gasoline, you're going to get a really big orange-yellow flame. Here's what the actual flames look like. Yes, right here in the photo, you can see the flame on the methanol, but this is a dark photo. And direct sunlight, this would be completely invisible. You would not be able to see your methanol flame at all. Ethanol, notice how it's got the yellow. you are able to see this flame even in the daylight. Yeah, not quite as good as a gasoline flame because the gasoline has black smoke coming off of it. It's really yellow, very easy to spot. Here's isopropyl alcohol, just so you can compare the difference. That's what's scary, the invisible flame. Now there is another problem with methanol. So let's pretend you get exposed to ethanol. You get soaked in it or you breathe in a bunch of fumes. What's going to happen is your liver's going to turn it into vinegar and you're going to have one hell of a hangover. You're going to feel like ass, like you went out drinking. If they didn't put additives in ethanol, you could actually drink ethanol and consume it. I believe it would be Everclear, basically. But the government hasn't put additives in there, so they don't have to have a liquor license to sell ethanol. Otherwise, you have to be 21 to pump ethanol in your car. But because it's cut with gasoline, or even E100s cut with other stuff to make it not drinkable, it's not considered a liquor. But you could actually drink it. Again, if you're exposed to it, your liver's going to turn into vinegar, you're going to get hungover. Methanol is not the same thing. It does not come from corn. We're not talking about corn liquor here. I believe methanol comes from wood. So methanol, if you get exposed to this, your liver's going to turn it into two chemicals. One is formaldehyde, the other one is formic acid. This is what's in ants that sting you, and this is what we use to preserve dead bodies. That is not good at all. What's going to happen is that acid is going to get into your ocular nerves and it's going to literally eat the cells. Your eyes are going to go milky white and you're not going to be able to see. It's going to create blindness. So yeah, methanol is absolutely horrible for you. You do not want to get exposed to this. Milky eye, very scary. So at the end of the day, if you're looking to build real horsepower like 4,000 horsepower, the only way you're going to do it is ditch that gasoline and you're going to have to go to probably methanol. Alcohol can't even get you up to the 4,000 horsepower there. It can get you close, but it's not going to get you there. So that's what's going on with methanol. Just to recap, it can be easily put out with straight up water. It burns real efficient. It's going to burn very clean. You're going to have invisible fire. If you get exposed to it, it's extremely, extremely toxic. So you have to make the decision if this is right for you. In my opinion, because we also are going to drive our cars on the street, you only have two choices, 93 octane or E85. But we're going to cover the other fuels just so you understand the pros and cons of it. Now, I will cover diesel too because that is an option you can get directly from the pump, making it very feasible for a street/strip vehicle. Anyways, appreciate you guys watching the video. I hope you found it entertaining. If not, maybe just a little bit of educational. If you'd like to help support the channel, click on that Amazon affiliate link. Even if you don't buy what that link is for, just clicking on it. Doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyway, I'll kick back for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.